Hey guys, what is up? It's your girl, Jasmine Kylene, and I assumed that I was going to take a break this week, but the new moon in Aquarius is on Thursday, and there's no way that I can't share just very quickly some tidbits on how I think we should be working alongside this new moon. I also pulled some incredibly powerful cards during this morning's morning mindfulness session, so I was like, I just have to share it with the IG collective. So I hope you guys are well. I hope you are doing as well as you possibly can be given the circumstances of existing. I'm just going to come in really quickly to share a little bit about what's going on astrologically, a couple of journaling prompts, the cards that I pulled, and then I'll hop right back out. But I hope you guys are well, like I said. Let's get into it. So before I even get into the new moon on Thursday, which is February 11th, I do want to immediately say that we are still under the influence of this Mercury retrograde. We will be until the 20th of February. So if you guys are feeling just like you aren't being understood, or that there's like these blocks that you keep hitting when it comes to communication, when it comes to even your own personal set of evolution, of values, of sort of reworking the plan. If your plan keeps getting delayed or deviated, know that you are working right alongside the astrological weather. It is still very much in full effect, and this can not only affect, like I said, technology and, electronics and sort of having a lot of blocks when it comes to like Wi-Fi going out or all of that stuff, but just on a communicative level, right? It oftentimes manifests in a lot of arguments, feeling misunderstood, feeling like, just like you need to put an extra effort when it comes to being heard or expressing yourself. So know that if you're meeting that, it is totally okay. And obviously with Mercury ruling the mind, ruling how we process, how we express, oftentimes it's going to bring back things from our past, not just on a physical level, right? So it's not always your ex is actually reaching out to you on a physical 3D level, but oftentimes they can pop up in your dreams, in your daydreams, in your mind, in your thoughts. This isn't just exes. This can also be ex relationships, ex friendships, former partnerships in business, or whatever it may be. Just know that whatever they are coming up, however they are coming up, is meant to sort of trigger your relationship with your own discernment, knowing that if you are sort of reviewing these old past relationships, they are either kind of being brought to your attention to show you how much you have grown out of them and how much they no longer resonate with the being that you've decided to be, the you that you've created yourself to be, but also recognizing which connections maybe you haven't learned a given lesson from, and maybe which connections would actually maybe benefit from some reconnection or some closure, right? So allowing your discernment to sort of navigate that in the way that is intuitively right to you. So what I mean by that is that only you know when you are reopening a wound just for the sake of validation, and when you actually are doing yourself a service by allowing something to resurface. So once again, I am not communicating as clearly as I typically would. That is Mercury retrograde, but just stick with me as much as you possibly can because I have really important information to share. So aside of the Mercury retrograde happening, we are moving into the new moon in Aquarius this week, right? So I think the last time that I came on here, I was talking about the full moon in Leo under Aquarius season, which was all about releasing. And obviously, typically with the lunar cycles, you release with full moons, you invite in and set intention with new moons. So this one is incredibly important that we are intentional with setting our manifestations in place, because we have Venus conjunct Jupiter, right? So this is very, very, very supportive of like magic and being the alchemist of our reality, right? Really making sure that we are sort of taking on this role that we've all been divinely gifted, that is our birthright, of being just the makers of our reality, the co-creators of our experience, right? So with it being in the sign of Aquarius, right? Aquarius is all about what is futuristic, what is light years ahead. They not only express themselves in ways that is different than what is commonly understood or what is mainstream, but also they see ahead. They see the grander scheme, they see the bigger picture, and thus they create from that same space. So I want us to implement this same mindset when it comes to the way we manifest, and I invite us to do so by using the rehearsal method. Now, Leor Alexandra, who's an incredible spiritualist, actually brought this to my attention recently, and I was like, I have to share this with people. So the rehearsal method is something that many celebrities have used before, including Prince. Prince would not go to grocery stores way before he had made it as a musician, way before he had been like just famously known, he wouldn't go to grocery stores because he was too famous. He would literally refuse to go to public spaces because he's like, well, no, I'm too famous to do something so common. I won't go there. Before he was even famous. And though, of course, many other factors played into him achieving his level of fame, the rehearsal method, right? That method of sort of understanding what the end result is and now acting accordingly in your current reality is a beautiful way to harness and cultivate and put yourself on the timeline where your manifestations are in the physical 3D reality. So obviously, I mean, if you want to be Prince level famous, then that is a beautiful way to do it. But this is going to look different for everyone on an individual level. But what I would encourage you to do is really look at what is this end result for you and how can you already act upon it on your current physical reality. Now, I want to immediately pause and say, with this Mercury in retrograde and with there being such a strong emphasis on Aquarius right now, your plan may not go the way that you expected it to. It may look a little bit different. You may be challenged to let go of certain attachments to certain ideals of how it's going to play out, of certain relationships that you thought you were going to take with you. Whatever that means for you, know that it may look different than what you have always been married to, but allow yourself to release attachment from the ways in which you thought it was going to unfold and allow it to unfold in which it is naturally and organically doing so right now, because that is exactly how it's meant to. We can get so attached to how we've decided that our outcome is going to look like, or not the outcome, how the journey is going to look like, that we don't allow shift and change to happen and to feed it and nourish it into something all the more better, right? And Aquarius is all about change. Aquarius is all about shift, all about transformation. So allowing your plan to sort of just shape shift alongside you, right? I think you are in this process, in this period of reflection. I think you are meeting a new version of yourself, a new desire, a new way of being. And so within that, allow the plan to reflect that. You know, maybe you're realizing that you want a different desire. Maybe you're realizing that you want to get to it differently. Maybe you're realizing that you were basing a lot of what you wanted out of life in greed and in ego. And that is okay. Don't judge yourself. You're simply a human having a human experience. But now that you have that knowledge, how can you sort of create and alchemize it to be something bigger than what it was? Hi, so nice to see you. Hi, Malin. So yeah, so what I mean by that is that now that we have this sort of new idea, a new foundation of who we want to be, how can we in turn alchemize our reality and our routine to fit that? So now coming into our present reality, if we are aware of how, for example, if you want to be an artist, what that looks like is, okay, well, I know that one day I'm going to be selling out a ton of masterpieces, a ton of, just grand pieces of art that I'm going to create. So in my current reality, I'll already buy out the domain with my name, because what this means is I'm going to get so famous that so many people are going to want to buy that domain that I'll already buy it now so that I have it. So just already doing those physical acts that are going to cement the reality that you want for yourself. That is the rehearsal method. So making sure that you really are married to the idea that like what the outcome is already yours and that you are acting accordingly right now. And also what's most important is making sure that you are rooting it in something bigger than yourself. That is what Aquarius is teaching us right now. I think a lot of us can at times think that we aren't deserving of money or that we don't want money because, money is defined by intention. And so many people have money defined by something that is oppressive or something that is exploitive. But truthfully, if you can build a career in a way that doesn't exploit people and that isn't oppressive and actually uplifts the collective vibration, then you can actually build a life for yourself where you do have that financial abundance, where you do feel deserving of that financial abundance, and where you pour it back into something that serves you and that is greater than you. What else do I want to say about that? So yeah, implement the rehearsal method. I would definitely say to do that for this new moon. It's totally powerful, totally the best way to, I think, really like harness this energy. I would really, really, really commit to working with this new moon. I think it's such a powerful one. I will say that we do have a square with Mars right now, so that can promote sometimes like hasty decisions, being too, I would say too impulsive with the way that we make our decisions, and that can also manifest in like a lot of arguments or a lot of like impulsive decisions that maybe aren't rooted in your center. So making sure that however you do move forward in this period, that it is based in a centered space and not just like in fleeting emotion. And lastly, yeah, how can I root my abundance in something bigger than myself? So the few journaling prompts I would really encourage you guys to work with. Oh, before I get to that, I do want to also note that this new moon is going to coincide with the Chinese New Year. So the Chinese New Year, obviously, is celebrated in China, but honestly, I think it upholds this idea of like reinvention, revolution. I mentioned this in the journaling prompt that I shared on the account, but this is a beautiful period to reinvent ourselves, reinvent what we desire, reinvent how we're allowing ourselves to reach that desire, and also just reinvent how we creatively express ourselves, how we identify ourselves, how we express our physical identity, right? Just like really reinventing and coming back into alignment with who we decide ourselves to be now that we've met ourselves a bit deeper. So allow this Chinese New Year, allow this new year, this new moon to really just uphold this idea that like, no, I can change, I can be my own revolution, and here's why, and here's how. The 3 prompts that I would definitely encourage you guys to do, we did this during this morning's mindful session, is the first one would be to write down how far you've come, right? I think Aquarius can be really hard on itself. It can be really stuck in its own head, especially with Mercury retrograde in Aquarius. We can be really overthinking, over thoughtful, try to squeeze the logic and sort of find the conditioning behind why we deserve anything. And so it's really important that we take the time to be reflective and to already honor the ways in which we have shown up for ourselves and the work that we've already done on ourselves. And then to follow that up would be write down where you're going, right? If you spent this time sort of reflecting on how far you've come, what does the rest of the journey look like for you? Even if you don't know how, you do know what the end result is. Hi, thank you for joining. You do know what the other side of it is. Hi. So spend some time writing down how far you've come. Spend some time writing down where you are going. And then the last one I would say is, what are some ways that I can reinvent myself for the better of who I will be later? So once again, that's implementing that rehearsal method, right? So if I know that this is who I'm going to be, right? If I know that I'm going to be this best-selling author, if I know I'm going to be this incredible musician, this respected, figure, what can I do in my physical reality to align myself with that path right now? What domain can I buy? What chapters can I write? Which ways can I shift my internal dialogue, right? I just talked a little bit about seeing ourselves as deserving of financial abundance, but within that, it's like, how can I shift my relationship and my perspective on finances to see myself as deserving of it and to not see it as such a bad or tainted thing? So yes, those are the journaling prompts I would recommend. And lastly, I want to share the cards that I pulled this morning for the group, the collective, because I felt like they were incredibly powerful. If you guys are familiar with the modern tarot deck, or not the traditional tarot deck, then these 2 cards, though they have different names in this deck, this one is the Tower card and this one is the Death card, which typically scares people, but I don't think that they ever should. But in this deck, it's called Disruption and Transformation. So this is the change that I was talking about. We can be so reluctant to embrace change. We can be so reluctant to allow our paths to be deviated, to allow the plan to unfold in a way that was different than the idea we were married to. But in releasing, in allowing the destruction of what we know, in allowing the plan to sort of reveal itself to us, we gain spiritual strength, right? Because this is called spiritual strength, by the way. Don't look at my nails. We gain spiritual strength because we allow ourselves to believe in something bigger than ourselves, and we allow ourselves to believe in the grand scheme of things. But that is when love begins, right? We are co-creators of our reality, but emphasis on the co, right? So whatever does, sort of fall apart from our paths, whatever is being highlighted to us that we need to sort of allow to be reconstructed is going to ultimately bring us back to this beautiful scene, which, just look at the rainbow, look at this is nourishment, this is health, this is vitality, right? So allowing ourselves to meet ourselves back to this place of surrender, this place of, maybe how I planned it is, unfolding in a different manner, but that is okay. Hi, thank you for joining. So basically that's it. With this Aquarius new moon, you really want to tap into new routines, new creative projects, new forms of physical expression. Allow yourself to meet yourself outside of the binds that you put yourself in. Maybe you never saw yourself as an author or a musician or an artist. Or creative. Maybe other people saw you as creative and you never even allowed yourself to take on that title, but maybe seeing the ways in which you can show up as a creator and just fully embracing that. So this is a beautiful new moon. Make sure that you are as intentional with it as you possibly can be. If you have a new moon journal, I would suggest using that. If you don't have a new moon journal, I would suggest getting Practice that rehearsal method. Practice the rehearsal method. If you are just joining, when I upload this, you can go back into the beginning of live and I explain a little bit about what the rehearsal method is. Yes, please live stream yourself as a DJ. That was such an enjoyable thing, and I'm hoping that you recognize how talented as you continue to show up for it. It's also worth noting that like things take time to build. Sometimes we can be so married to instant gratification that we don't allow things to happen in a slow and steady manner, but we appreciate them deeper when we do realize how many drops of blood, sweat, and tears went into it. It doesn't always have to be difficult, but it does sometimes require consistency and commitment, and it's so worth it at the end, even if the path looks differently than what we assumed it would look like. It's important to just allow, surrender, but also show up. And also just on like a surface note, Aquarius is all about like expressing ourselves in a way that is so contrary to what is expected. So like dye your hair. I mean, okay, let me find the middle ground here, because I also am not recommending we make any like impulsive decisions. Congratulating you upon your arrival, right? So when you are sort of acting alongside this way of knowing that, you know, you're going to reach this goal and that you're in alignment with the timeline in which this goal is yours, envision, you know, your mom, your best friend, your partner saying, "Oh my God, I'm so proud of you for getting there. I'm being